Hi there, my name is Steve Gearhart, and this is the Unagi Observer. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching this week. This week, we're going to do a review of a science fiction movie. Now, as you know, this channel talks about all sorts of things of fandom, gaming, sci-fi, books, movies, anime in particular. But this week, we're going to talk about a movie that came out in the past week, and it's called Dune. It is the latest version of Dune by Vilnius, and we're going to talk about that today, but I just want to warn you that there are going to be spoilers, massive amounts of spoilers, between the book, Lynch's version, and of course Villeneuve's version. So, if you don't want to get spoilers, don't watch any further, but I will go ahead and tell you that if you want to see this movie, if you're thinking about seeing this movie, I encourage you to go see this movie. As a matter of fact, I would also say that if you feel okay with it, that you should see it in the theater because the scope is so big and grand that a laptop screen or a regular television screen isn't going to do it. You can get it on HBO Max, but it's just not the same. If you're still worried about theaters, I'll put a link down to what's called Cinema Safe. If a theater near you is Cinema Safe, that will explain what that means, and it's a pretty good program. But I really encourage you to see this movie. It's really that good. Okay, so now we're going to talk about why I think the movie is that good. Okay, so before I get into the actual movie itself, the review, just an apology. I live in an apartment in Baltimore, so there's a lot of city sounds today, and there's a lot of weird gurgling sounds coming from my washer and dryer, which is literally right behind this thing right here. So if you hear some ambient noise, my apologies. Anyway, and again, we're going to have a lot of spoilers here, so if you haven't read the book and you don't want to hear spoilers, if you haven't seen Lynch's version and you don't want any spoilers, if you haven't seen the Villeneuve version and you don't want any spoilers, stop now and come back to it after you watch the movie, because I think you should watch the movie. Okay, so let's get into it. Dune is one of those franchises that is really, really, for some reason, very hard to make. It's like the Fantastic Four, There's no really good Fantastic Four movie. There's some that are passable, that people can be entertained by, but for the most part, as a franchise, every time there's an outing, it just doesn't work that well for a variety of reasons. It almost as if they are doomed to never be able to be made. And Dune kind of had that. There's a lot of actually documentaries about the making of Dune, and it goes back to a guy named Jodorowsky, who got as far as story panels, but his vision was never realized. They talk about how Ridley Scott was going to be a director, and that didn't happen. And it just talks about how, like Lynch's version was made, the television version, and it just all these different things that just didn't work out, and there's this like saga of trying to make Dune, which is why Villeneuve's Dune is getting such good credit right now, because it's actually the best version out there. For a long time, Lynch's version was the best. In other words, it was the least worst of what was out there in terms of movies and TV shows. But let's start with the book itself. The book is the first book in a series of books about Dune and about Paul Atreides and what happens to the Atreides family and the Fremen over a course of a period of time. The first book, Dune, is a classic sci-fi. It is arguably one of the best sci-fi written books out there. It's usually in the top 10, certainly top 20. As a matter of fact, in my high school, back in the day, it was actually required reading in one of my honors courses. So it's a thing. It's a well written book. It's enjoyable, and there's a lot of concepts and visions and things that go on inside of the book that are very relevant even today. The book was written a long time ago, many decades ago. Frank Herbert is the author, has long since passed. So the book has a very talismanic quality to it. Now, anytime you adapt a book to a movie or a television show, you get the rage, you get the fan rage, right? The people who are like, hey, you didn't go exactly by the book. Well, here's the thing. You can't. If you did, you would have the Jodorowsky version, which is 10 hours long. That's not going to happen. Okay, that's why the studios never made the movie. It was 10 hours long. That's like, and that's with cuts. Okay, so obviously you're going to have to learn how to cut. Lynch's version didn't do that very well, and Lynch's version, while rich in terms of visual set styles and costuming, and just amazing use of it. Geiger, the artist H.R. Geiger, was involved in creation of some of the mechanics behind Dune. Visually stunning in terms of that. The sandworms looked like sock puppets. A lot of the effects were mediocre. Unfortunately, with Lynch's version, you had this interior dialogue that didn't work. It actually confused things, and it was all in whispers, sotto voce, loud whispering, and it was a mess of a movie. But it was the closest good thing we have to Dune until Villeneuve's version. Now, in the book, there's a lot of internal dialogue, like how a character thinks, what they're looking after, and there's also sub-stories within the book. They talk about characters, they give more backstories. It gives more density to the overall story. You also get out of the book the idea that Paul Atreides is not necessarily the good guy. In Lynch's version, that's what you get. Paul Atreides he's the good guy out to save the universe. In the book and the subsequent series, it talks about how not so much when you kind of think about it. The word jihad is used a lot, so that should give you a hint, a flavor of what they talk about in Dune. Ecological disasters, ecology, environmentalism, they're big concepts within the book, so get used to reading about plants and how things survive in a desert and things like that. So Dune is very, very, for a book that is not more than 500 pages or so, it's very densely packed. So to make a movie out of it is to really understand what the story is and how to present it. Just to give you an outline of what the story actually is, basically, it's humanity in the year 10,191. Okay, we're way into the future. Some things have happened to humanity during the course of this time that's alluded to in the book, which is that there was a machine war where humanity almost got wiped out. Machines, so humanity trusts machines, sentient machines, very little. So there's very little computers, there's very little things like that. So, and they gravitate towards being able to do these things that machines would normally do, but human beings being able to do them. So you have these people that are kind of like mentats, people who are basically living computers. They're able to do calculations and all these things very, 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 very quickly. There are the Bene Gesserit, which you'll hear a lot in any version that you watch. And this is more the political of women, a women-run organization, actually women-dominated organization, that seeks to tap into things about control and politics and being able to do things like using your voice to control somebody, to be able to be empathic, to be able to have precognitive powers, to be able to see the future and things like that. And their goal is to create a male version of the Bene Gesserit, which is called the Kwisatz Haderach, who is supposed to help bring peace to the known universe of mankind. At this point, mankind has gone over thousands of planets. The Empire is this huge thing, and there are major houses, minor houses. One of the major houses is House Atreides, which has a blood feud with another major house called House Harkonnen, and the Emperor sits above all of this. So there's a lot of political machinations going on. And the Emperor and the Harkonnens think that the Atreides are getting too powerful, so they set a trap on the planet of Arrakis, where the Emperor says to the Atreides, you are now in charge of Arrakis, this desert planet, have fun. So what's the big point about Arrakis? Well, Arrakis makes this thing called the spice. It's all about the spice. And so spice is this thing that gives people like the Bene Gesserit increased power. It will give it actually extends life. It's not exactly immortality, but people live way longer than they should. The spice also helps what's called the Spacing Guild, which is another huge entity, which they are the guys that control space travel. That they can warp time and space with the spice to go from one side of the universe to the other side. So spice is really, really important and can be only found and harvested on this one single planet out of thousands. So to have control of Arrakis means that you're going to have rich, you're going to have power, and all this. Well, the Harkonnen and the Empire have different plans. They trick the Atreides, and then they do their attack, and they do their thing. And I'm not going to say any details because I want you to read the book. So that happens. So now you get this idea of the story. Paul Atreides is the character who could be the Kwisatz Haderach, and he has visions of, in the book, jihad, meaning that he sees himself leading the Fremen from Arrakis across the known universe and slaughtering people, and that's part of the badness of his visions. So why is Villeneuve's version so good? Well, because it encompasses all this stuff, and he does it in such a way that he knows where to cut. First of all, Villeneuve knows what to cut out, what stories to shrink, and what characters to expand on, and what characters to make you feel for, and what characters to make you go, okay, whatever. This is what he does, and it's a good couple hours of solid storytelling. One of the better things that Villeneuve did with this movie is it gives Caladan, the planet that the House Atreides is from, a bigger part. You get to see the contrast between Caladan and Arrakis. In the previous versions, all you see is them for like a scene or two standing in front of a raging ocean and then off to go to space. In Villeneuve's version, you actually feel for their ties to this planet, and that the fact that they're leaving this planet is very worrisome. Like, you actually get worried. You get a really good glimpse into the Atreides family by a sort of subtle storytelling of the grandfather, who you never meet because he's already dead, and because he was gored by a bull in bullfighting. I'm not going to say any more than that because it's an interesting tale and how it's woven into the overall first part of Dune. So let's talk about some of the characters. For the most part, I feel that the characters, that the actors that are chosen to play these characters were well chosen. I think there isn't a misstep here. Particularly with Duncan Idaho's character, the character of Duncan Idaho and Gurney Halleck. In the book, Duncan Idaho is a more serious character, and he goes out to meet the Fremen, and he's sort of like a warrior attaché to the House Atreides. Gurney Halleck is sort of a man-at-arms kind of journeyman. He can do a whole bunch of different things, and he has a great intense hatred for the Harkonnens. There's a story behind that. In the book and in Lynch's version, you get a lighter version of Gurney Halleck. He plays what's called a balisette, which is kind of a 9-stringed instrument. He sings ballads. He always has a quotation of, whenever the situation requires it. And he has a great quotation that I actually say in my own life, which is, "If wishes were fishes, we'd all cast nets." So, he says, has these little quips in there. The thing is that Josh Brolin plays Gurney Halleck, and he plays a very serious Gurney Halleck. And it's not the over-the-top, troubadour kind of Gurney Halleck that you see in the book and Lynch's version. This is a very serious guy here who has intense hate for the Harkonnens. And then you're talking about Duncan Idaho, played by Jason Momoa, who is of Aquaman fame. He does a really great, more carefree Duncan Idaho. You get more of Duncan Idaho in Villeneuve's movie than you did in Lynch. You get more of Duncan in the book as well. But the Lynch movie does not explore Duncan Idaho that much, and Duncan Idaho in Lynch's version gets poor treatment, I think. So you are interested. You're vested into these characters. The guy who plays Duke Leto II, Paul Atreides' father, wonderful. You'll remember him from I think it's Rogue One and the various other Star Wars movies. He plays a great Duke Leto Atreides. Again, I can't say enough about the casting. There are some little missteps. They don't treat the character of Peter Vries, which is the Mentat for the Harkonnens, very well. He is a major player in the book, and he's a major player in the Lynch version. He's a catalyst for a lot of things that happen. I'm not sure how I feel just yet how they treated Dr. Yue. I'm not going to go into that very, very much. In the book, there's a refrain in the book. Yui, there a million deaths were not enough for Yui. He is a unfortunate villain in this story, and his backstory is very tragic. You only see Baron Harkonnen a handful of times, played by Skarsgård, and he plays a version that is very understated, evil, gross kind of evil. In the Lynch version, you have a wonderful version of Baron Harkonnen, and he's disgusting, and it's just wonderful. I mean, that's actually one of the selling points of the Lynch version. Beast Raban is played by Batista, and he does a wonderful job. Again, you don't see him that much in this part. The movie only goes to a certain point in the book, and it stops. And hopefully Dune Part 2, which I believe has been greenlit, I'm not 100% sure, but if it is, then this is a great stopping point. And that has to do with Jessica and Paul meeting the Fremen and coming into the Fremen Steech, or where they live. At this point in the book, in the story, the Atreides are not doing well at all. Like, a lot of people are dead at this point. But it stops at this point, and with the death of Jameel. For those of you who have read the book, you know that's an important, very important part of the story. And I have a feeling that when we go into Part 2, they're going to talk more about it. Let's talk about the visuals. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like I was talking about Caladan, you talk about the desert on Arrakis. Everything is of large scope. This is why you have to see it on the big screen. You really shouldn't watch it on a laptop. The scope is just huge. Everything is massive. It's humanity in the year 10,191. So obviously there's going to be big things and things that are very technological, and but with a weird twist of not having computers. It's just very visually appealing as well, and there's a very good starkness to it. And there's a nod back to the Lynch movie in terms of the machines that are used in Dune and some of the set pieces. So you'll be like, okay, I saw the Lynch version. I see what they did there. Good on them. I will say that one of the most difficult things that the book has had to do, or transcribing from the book into a visual medium, is the Orthropters. There is no real description of the Orthropters in a book, because it's like, when you read about how it flies, you're just like, well, how did your mind come up with that? Villeneuve comes up with it, and I want one. I so badly want one. I want it to be real, and so I can have it. So there's that. The music score, again, is fantastic. This is Hans Zimmer at his best. He actually turned down things so that he could focus on Dune and get it right. Villeneuve, as a director, did, like I said, an excellent job in choosing what to cut and what to portray and how to portray it. There is no internal dialogue in the first part. So that mess that occurs in the Lynch version doesn't occur here. So you're welcome. Villeneuve, thank you. And also, one last thing to talk about it on this note is language, the use of language. Everywhere from actually tonal to outright spoken to sign language. In the book, you read a lot about hidden languages that people in the major houses develop within their own house, which is a way to secretly communicate with other members without tipping their hand, so to speak. And a lot of these are with hand gestures. And you see this a lot in the movie, and with the subtitles underneath this let you know what it means. And it's brilliantly done. I think it's brilliantly done. So I'm going to wrap this up and tell you that should you watch this movie, absolutely come to your own conclusions. Like I said, there are some missteps here and there. There are some things that you might find interesting or you might find divisive, like the shields. I happen to like how they did the shields here. Other people don't. You be you. You figure it out. You watch it. And that's the other thing. Just one quick little thing before I wrap it up, is that the weaponry that they use, for those of you who are not familiar with the Dune series, laser beams are not a big part of war in this universe. It's actually bladed weapons. You'll understand why as you watch the movie, and I'll leave it at that. So go watch the movie. I totally recommend it. You're going to enjoy it. It's going to be entertaining. Watch on the big screen if you can at a Cinema Safe theater. Again, I'll put the link down for Cinema Safe so you know what that is. And yes, go and enjoy it. If you read the book, you're going to like the treatment of it. Alright, so that's it for this week. That's the review of Dune, Vilnius' Dune. I hope you go out and watch it. It's really worth it. And I hope you guys had a good Halloween. Did you have a good Halloween? What did you dress up as? What did you cosplay? Do you have pictures? If you have pictures and they're online, please put a link down below. Let's all see what we did this past weekend. So again, I hope you had a good time. So that's going to be it. I'll see you guys next week. Just make sure if you haven't got your booster shots, get your booster shots. Sign up. I'm waiting to hear when I get to get my shot. If you haven't been vaccinated yet, please do that. It's going to help greatly with getting us around this COVID-19 nonsense. Make sure you social distance, that you wear your mask. All these things help. And the more that we do this, the better chance we have of being able to get together at conventions for the future and be face-to-face. I would love to meet you guys in face-to-face. As much as I love doing this, I would also love to talk to you guys. Like I said, I went to Gen Con and it was just such a nice thing. And I really want that again. So please get your shots, get your boosters, wear the mask, social distance, do what you need to do, because I really like you guys and I want to talk to you at some point. All right, have a great week.